All right, we're in the middle of post-Super Bowl hysteria. We have people talking about absolutely stupid stuff like George Kittle speaking on the field or whatever it is on a play where he couldn't have really done anything differently. On this channel, we talk about football, and we have a gold mine of that too. You just have to look hard enough. You just have to look past all the clickbait, and you can find fascinating football discussions, especially this one featuring Brian Baldinger and Steve Spagnuolo, who is the Chiefs defensive coordinator. Not just Kansas City's defensive coordinator, but a four-time Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator who also was with the New York Giants when they held the 18-0 New England Patriots with Tom Brady at QB in the 2007 season to just 14 points. That made the Patriots 18-1. So Steve Spagnuolo is the real deal, and he's got a hell of a lot of respect for Brock Purdy. Let's just listen a little bit from this podcast that came out today with Steve Spagnuolo. This is going to give you insight on Brock Purdy that you absolutely need to hear because it sets the table for the 49ers' future.
Back to Purdy for a second, generally, because early on, he had a lot of composure. I thought, again, because we're thinking same thing. Like you're going to go in and you're going to go zero at times and try to get to him and try to rat him a bit. And I was impressed by him.
I thought he showed that same poise throughout the playoffs.
Yeah.
In those, I mean, they were behind in those other games, and he didn't flinch. I didn't think, and he got hit in other games, and he didn't flinch. He didn't flinch in this game. I mean, Nick Bolton hit him once, really got right after they got rid of the ball.
Yeah,
a couple other shots that he took, and I thought I don't think he got flustered at all. But I kind of felt that he wouldn't. Like I didn't go in there thinking, okay, this is a young quarterback.
Right.
Let's do this, and we'll get him out of his game because he had proved it to me in the other games that wasn't the case.
So go back to the Detroit game. And do you remember on I think it was the second drive of the game against Detroit, where we saw Purdy just get blown up by the defensive tackle and he still got the throw off to Deebo Samuel? It's not only that. You can go back to any of Brock Purdy's games this season or even to his career debut against the Miami Dolphins, his career debut as far as extended action went. Jalen Phillips came off the blitz on that third down. Purdy got drilled, but he hung in there. He delivered over the middle to George Kittle. First down on 3rd and long. This has been the story of Brock Purdy with the 49ers. He's not afraid to take a hit. He hangs in there like a grizzled veteran. At no point has he seemed like a young quarterback. And that's Steve Spagnuolo, one of the greatest defensive coordinators of all time, talking about Brock Purdy's composure. And if the composure is already this good, and it was this good in Purdy's first career action, and it was this good in his first Super Bowl, well, that's saying something for the 49ers' future. And Steve Spagnuolo acknowledged it there. But there is much more from Steve Spagnuolo, and this, to me, is what is actually groundbreaking.
Back yet. Because one of the things that did scare me after watching the film, to be quite honest, like I didn't know what to expect with the quarterback because not a lot of crossover film, right, guys, in the AFC, NFC, and we didn't see him a lot. But the way he scrambled in those other playoff games, that became a concern. Now, I didn't think, we got done playing Tua, Josh Allen, right, and Lamar. And so all of them, you guys know, in the game plan had spies involved, right? You had to. And so I'm hoping, okay, it's Brock Purdy, who I don't know anything about before I put the film on. Oh, maybe we won't have to use a spy finally. We can rush 4 guys. But then you put the film on, and he's running all over the place. So we had a little bit of that in there, not as much as we had in the prior games. But adding all that up, Anthony, to your original question, stop the run, get LJ on number 11, try to limit the tight end to not deep, but underneath stuff, and then find a way when we got in those passing downs not to allow the quarterback to scramble like he did against those other teams.
Which Baldy and I were watching the 3rd and 15 early in the second half after the turnover, and they had a 3rd and 15, and you spied Purdy on that play.
Is that the one that did Willie Gay?
Yeah, that was Willie.
Yeah,
Willie's looking
that
right
was,
at it, Steve.
And then I'll be honest with you, you guys picked it up. Of course, you guys don't miss a thing. But we did that because it felt like when Brock Purdy did see man and it was tight enough, which we were banking on, right, that he would pull it down and do what he did in those other games. And we didn't really feel like, 4 down, D linemen, right? Baldy,
Yeah.
they're putting their ears back. And as much as you want to tell them, hey, one of you guys has to be respected, they don't,
They're
because
trying to
they
get home,
lost
Steve.
in the moment. But Willie doesn't get lost in the moment. He knows what his role is. And I knew Willie could run him down because Willie's got some speed. He did, and he got us off the field. Those are big plays. Those third down plays are huge.
Big third down plays on which the Chiefs had to spy Brock Purdy. Hold on, let's rewind a bit. I was big about pointing out this season that Brock Purdy's got an elite burst. His pocket movement, when I started watching Brock Purdy and then I watched the tape of all these games, his pocket movement, elite. It's been that way since day one. He's known how to move within the pocket. He made some poor decisions as a rookie as far as bailing the pocket, but his ability to move was always great, has always been great. So that's why I talked about the 10-yard split this season. That's why I talked about the 95th percentile score that Brock Purdy brought, because that's the one measurable that's been able to show us that he is the mobile quarterback that Kyle Shanahan has been looking for. There was the whole big swing up to take Trey Lance, and the 49ers hoped that that athleticism would pair with developmental pocket passing ability to create a super QB. They've got it in Brock Purdy, though. They got what they were looking for and traded up for at number 3 in pick number 262. How about that? The very last pick of the draft is bringing the type of athleticism to the table that requires the defense to run a spy. This was hard for people to wrap their heads around earlier in the season before the Baltimore game, but they finally saw it, I think, in volume with Brock Purdy's runs down the stretch of the NFC Championship game. And Steve Spagnuolo, he's an AFC, so doesn't get to watch all too much Brock Purdy film. Obviously, he watched plenty entering the Super Bowl. He puts on the tape, he sees Purdy running around, and he says, holy crap, we're going to have to spy him on select downs. And Willie Gay, the linebacker for the Chiefs, was the spy. But between what Spagnuolo said in the first clip that I showed you and what he said in the second clip, unflappable Brock Purdy in the first clip, speedy Brock Purdy enough to get the respect of a defense through a spy. And those of you who are wondering what a spy is, I should probably explain. A spy is somebody who's assigned to watch the quarterback instead of rushing him. So you bring up one fewer pass rusher because you don't want to get burned by the quarterback bailing the pocket and running for several yards like Brock Purdy did at key junctures against Detroit. So a spy is a safe defense against the run, but it also weakens your defensive efficiency because you don't have as many pass rushers. So the fact that Brock Purdy has the legs to demand that the defense use a spy, that is huge for the ongoing chess match moving forward. If you look at the future, 49ers entering into 2024, Kyle Shanahan an entire offseason to look at this tape from 2023 and decide what his strategies and what new plays he's going to add in for 2024. He can add plays that are built around not necessarily the use of Brock Purdy's legs, although that's going to be a wrinkle the 49ers can certainly add in, but the threat of his legs. I think that the threat of Brock Purdy's legs is now that is something that the league has absorbed. The AFC had to absorb it here in the Super Bowl. Steve Spagnuolo, one of the great defensive coordinators of all time, has absorbed it. And now you could devise plays spinning off of that. Somebody is spying, well, you're going to have a little bit less of a pass rush. You can let your pass routes downfield develop a little bit more. Brock Purdy's going to have more time, and your downfield passing attack can be more efficient in 2024. Every action has a reaction that the 49ers can deliver with Brock Purdy. And the reason why they took that big swing for a mobile QB in 2021 was to open more of the offense in this way. The irony is they didn't get it through Trey Lance, but they are getting it through Brock Purdy. 95th percentile quickness with that 10-yard split. Don't forget that. 95th percentile quickness. Combine that with the ability to process in the pocket, the ability to manipulate the pocket and know where to move, where to use that quickness, and you have a quarterback that the 49ers can rely on for quite some time. That's what this season showed us. That's what the Super Bowl showed us. That's what Steve Spagnuolo is telling us. Again, he thinks that Purdy is unflappable in the face of pressure. He was in the Super Bowl. He thinks that Brock Purdy can run, and he can change defensive schematics because of it. Those are big time compliments that came Brock Purdy's way from Steve Spagnuolo, who, and let's put a little bit more perspective on this. Spagnuolo held Tom Brady at his absolute height to 14 points in a Super Bowl. 49ers scored, 19 in regulation, 22 in overtime if you include OT. So Purdy acquitted himself really damn well. Scored more than Tom Brady did against the New York Giants of that 2007 season. There was a drought early in the second half where the 49ers could not get that first down run going. Obviously, the Chiefs were able to stop some first down passes. There was an 8-yard loss to Juwan Jennings after Purdy spun out of some pressure. And the 49ers really stalled there. And yes, of course, that was damaging. But when you listen to the rest of that Steve Spagnuolo interview, to me, it is absolutely fascinating because he is big on talking about the cornerbacks, L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie, who's the nickel for the Kansas City Chiefs, and how big they were in the game plan. They had L'Jarius Sneed follow Brandon Ayuk around, and he did a good job, I think, really neutralizing Ayuk. Ayuk had more targets than he normally does. He didn't have as many catches or as many yards as he normally does. And Trent McDuffie was the Swiss Army knife that was able to do everything for the Chiefs. And he was mainly on Deebo Samuel. But even within the context of those matchups and how well those two cornerbacks played, Steve Spagnuolo said that Purdy was really damn good as far as buying time in the pocket. There was a play where he went deep to Deebo Samuel in the end zone, and it was just great coverage from Trent McDuffie. That play doesn't happen unless Brock Purdy manipulates the pocket, and it doesn't happen without a Christian McCaffrey block of Chris Jones that wasn't even part of the play call, but it was improvisation from Christian McCaffrey to get a piece of Chris Jones, give Brock Purdy time to lean sideways, lean out of the way of pressure, step up and throw the football. But the fact that the Chiefs had two DBs that played such a good game, both in coverage and on the blitz for McDuffie, that allowed Kansas City to focus on other things. The cornerbacks did their job locking down on the outside. The rest of the defense was then able to focus on George Kittle, who might have been playing a little bit hurt, was able to focus on, obviously, guys like Christian McCaffrey running his pass patterns out of the backfield. Juwan Jennings, in turn, had a bigger day because the focus on locking down the outside receivers was so strong. So you had a guy like Juwan Jennings step up in this football game. You saw catches for Chris Conley and Ray McLeod that were really big for the 49ers as well. So Brock Purdy made it work with what he needed to make it work with in this football game to keep the 49ers in it. And he played really well. And I think that's why you're getting all of the rave reviews from guys like Steve Spagnuolo right now. Unfortunately for San Francisco, the pass protection breakdowns were just a little bit too much for them down the stretch. Got a San Francisco showcase for you today. Ocean Beach today. We're going to take a look at Ocean Beach. We're going to take a look at some of the surfers as we talk about the 49ers. We wind down from the Super Bowl. It's Friday night. I'm sure people have some plans. See all those little specks on the water? Those are all surfers at Ocean Beach. They're less afraid of sharks than I am. I swim in the water, but I swim in the bay. I don't normally come out here to the open ocean. I've done it a couple times, I guess. But, I mean, these guys are always looking for big, good waves. And there they are, hanging out at Ocean Beach in San Francisco. It's been gloomy. It definitely has in the Bay Area, and it's going to be gloomy. There's going to be rain coming in. I'm not sure when I'm going to fly. I have like 4 flights booked over the next 4 days. I'm just going to determine what happens based on me waking up and looking at the schedule before I head to the airport. It's going to be a lot of fun to try to fly out of here in another rain and windstorm after the last experience heading to the Super Bowl. But this is Ocean Beach for you right now. It is looking pretty. Actually, a little bit earlier, but it is looking pretty. And a lot of surfers trying to get that surf in before it gets out. I'm sure some of them will be out there when it gets really, really windy and really rainy because they're crazy like that. But it'll be good. Dr. 650 wants a draft needs video. Well, if draft needs, the 49ers need to use their 11 picks. Oh, he was trying to catch one. Didn't quite get it. Unfortunately, we didn't get anybody actually surfing right now as we were looking at Ocean Beach. But a draft needs video, of course. I mean, we could talk about it right now. I think you need to fortify offensive line depth. You need to I mean, look at any way to upgrade right guard and that right tackle position. I think that's so important for the 49ers is fortifying the right side. They've invested in the line before. It's not like that hasn't been a spot where they've used capital. They have used capital, but you need to pour more in. You absolutely need to pour more in. And just in general, the roster needs to get younger at the margins. Guys like Ray McLeod are free agents. I don't know if you re-sign him for stability at the punt returner position or if you decide that you need to go with a rookie at the position, right? And you go with somebody young at the position and you have a punt returner and kick returner that you can trust for several years to come on that rookie contract. It might be hard to find in the draft, but where this team has been weaker has been along the offensive line and at the second edge rushing position. They got Chase Young this year to somewhat ameliorate that problem, but you got to keep on stocking players. You got to keep on stocking players at the linebacker position because you could see how fragile that can be with Dre Greenlaw, right? Dre Greenlaw is the Achilles tear right now. So the entire roster is a need because nothing is ever permanently solved in the National Football League. The entire roster is something that needs to constantly be replenished through the draft, even if you're not thinking about top-end players, even if you have Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk at that receiver position, you still need to be thinking about the pipeline behind them, and that's what the 11 picks are going to be about. That's why you pick best player available, because best player available means inherently that you need depth at every single position. There's never not a need for somebody in the NFL because there's always going to be attrition at a position. So go ahead and grab best player available, make the roster as good as possible, especially since you don't pick till number 31. It's going to be much, much harder to be specific with some of those picks. So the draft needs videos, the entire roster. You've got to get younger. You've got to get more robust across that roster. And I think that's what the 49ers are in the business of doing. There you have the look at the Outer Sunset District in San Francisco, Ocean Beach. All good stuff. All right, more questions. I'm ready for them. You want McLeod, Orrin Burks, and Isaiah Oliver to go? Well, I do think that Isaiah Oliver is somebody who's going to get cut. They signed Isaiah Oliver to a 2-year deal, and they could save about $2.4 million in cap money. They didn't use him extensively this year. He was benched early on. He was tied to Steve Wilkes, who wanted that bigger nickel back. He didn't have the change of direction that the 49ers wanted at nickel. So Isaiah Oliver is somebody that probably won't be back. Other free agents are indeed Ray McLeod and Orrin Burks. And you know what? I wrote about this, and this is an article that you absolutely should check out. By the way, today I was talking about, I'm going to put this up on the screen. Today I was talking about the 1991 49ers. So I popped open this wild piece from, I think I wrote this in 2021 from the 1991 season. Look at that. The 49ers had a new helmet prototype in 1991. And it looked like that. That's hideous. Not good. They were so flooded with calls and complaints, the 49ers were, that they had to abandon course. They could no longer go with that new helmet. What do you guys think of that helmet? You guys like it? I don't. I think it's hideous. That's Carmen Policy and Eddie DeBartolo Jr. Eddie on the left and Carmen Policy on the right, unveiling the new helmet. They had suffered a brutal loss to the New York Giants in the NFC Championship game. Joe Montana had gotten hurt. He'd never start a game for the 49ers again. That marked the transition to Steve Young, although at the time of this, they didn't know. This was a couple weeks after the season. They were like, all right, we just suffered a brutal loss. We're not going to three-peat, but we're going to unveil a new helmet. They unveiled the new helmet that you see right there. Anyway, that was our San Francisco showcase of the day, a little history showcase of the day. Let's move forward to what I wanted to show you. And that is the 49ers. This is my work on The Athletic, and this is the 49ers pending free agent list. So here you go. Ranking the 49ers top free agents. What's next for Chase Young and Sam Darnold? Javon Kinlaw's on there. I didn't put Isaiah Oliver on there because he's not a free agent. He's still under contract for another season. But I think he's likely to become a free agent because I think the 49ers are going to go ahead and cut him. I do think that Ray McLeod is on the top 10 list of free agents. So I think I made a top 8 list. So you can go ahead and check this out. I've tweeted it a few times today, but I think it is an article worth discussing at this point. Somebody wants to bring back the helmet. That's crazy to me. You think it's going to change the 49ers mojo? Bringing back, where is it? Oh, I think I lost the page. Oh, I got it again. Here it is. You seriously want to bring back this? Crazy. How much of the late round success was Adam Peters? We're about to find out, aren't we? In all seriousness, Adam Peters was somebody who built the organization into what it is. And the organization is the mechanism that scouts these players, identifies the talent, and makes the picks. So Adam Peters was a key part of building it. If he built it right, which I think the 49ers believe he did, it will be able to sustain itself even after his departure to Washington. It's about the communication between the coaching staff and the scouting department. The coaching staff will say, this is exactly what we need to the scouts. You can't have these guys in a different building not talking to each other. They'll say, we need somebody with a burst that fits the outside zone. They tell the scouting departments, they specifically look for players with that skill set. Boom, that's how you get Elijah Mitchell in the 6th round. That was a steal. That was a steal in the 6th round. That is a great example of coaching staff and scouting department working together. Adam Peters was a big part of establishing that mechanism for the 49ers. So we'll see who they promote. I think it's either going to be Tariq Ahmad or RJ Gillen. Maybe they have some kind of co-assistant GM thing to reward both of those guys. One of them's from the college side, one of them's from the pro scouting side. And I guess that we'll find out around the time of the NFL Combine, which is at the end of this month. How could he leave the Niners after building it? Where's the loyalty? I mean, guys, Adam Peters was loyal for a long time to the 49ers. He still is loyal to the 49ers. This guy has a career. He was offered to be an NFL general manager. I mean, these guys, these scouts, they grind and toil away for years. They're staying in motels, driving for hours, looking for players. They work their way up the ladder. Their goal is to be the man, the NFL general manager. And that's the goal of the 49ers system, to develop these guys to get those kind of opportunities. So he interviews year after year and he gets the offer from Washington. Just because he takes this offer to reach his dream job doesn't mean that he's not loyal to the 49ers. Let me ask you a question. I don't know if you ever aspired to play football, but obviously you're a football fan. Say that you were in some minor league playing football, some beer league playing football, and all of a sudden the San Francisco 49ers called you and said, hey, we have a spot in your roster. I don't think that you would say no to the very highest level you could get to playing football. And I don't think that whatever league you were in before that would say that you're disloyal for taking that opportunity. You have to advance and raise and encourage your talent, whether it be in the front office, on the playing field, in the coaching rooms. You have to encourage that talent to take that next step. And Adam Peters did. This is the way to look at it. It is the ultimate compliment when your staff gets poached. And people have wanted Adam Peters for years. Beer league to the 49ers would be the dream. That's for sure. The point is that you're always looking to get that higher position. And if your organization is not filled with people who is not filled with people who are ambitious, you want those people that are ambitious. If it's not filled with those types of people, your organization's probably going to hit a wall. You want people looking for that promotion. You want people that are hungry. Adam Peters was a big 49ers guy. He did a great job, but all power to him. Once that organization on the East Coast, as Washington this time, offers that job, he's willing to move his family across the country to the East Coast, and I don't blame him. That's a big-time job that he got with the Washington Commanders. All right, let's get some questions in here. Slender Man hopes the 49ers don't have an Eagles-type hangover. 49ers don't want to end up like they did in 2020 either. Although I will say that 2020 was an exceptional season in that they didn't get to work out together in the offseason. They did that thing in Nashville, I think, but then was it Deebo Samuel who broke his foot there? I mean, that the 2020 season was an outlier, and then you saw it continue to be an outlier with how many injuries the 49ers had. There was no offseason program. It was really hard to pick it up and go on a revenge tour following the Super Bowl, given the circumstances of 2020. I think the Eagles imploding last year, there's a culture problem with the Philadelphia Eagles. It might start with their head coach, who was able to keep his job. But the 49ers, they have already shown that they can bounce back with really good play from some of these devastating losses. 2021, 2022, both really good seasons. And I would say that the 49ers will be ready to go. They got to get through this mourning period, but they've got so many good players. They've got such a good culture. They've got good leadership. The proof is in the pudding. Their ability to deliver great seasons, even through adversity in 2021 and 2022 and 2023. I mean, it was a good season. Their ability to do that has, I think, given them very, very good positioning to go out and be very, very good in 2024. My favorite memory of the 2023 season. Wow. Well, I'll just give you some memories and then we'll narrow it down from there. I remember Nick Bosa signing his contract right before the 49ers played the Steelers, to the point where I had to write the Nick Bosa contract analysis on Saturday in Pittsburgh with a view of the entire city. I went up across the river and I took the little funicular cable car up the river. I got a seat in a bar. I remember there was a couple on a date right next to me, and there was another group of friends watching football. They're watching the Pitt Panthers, the college team, play in the stadium where the 49ers would play the next day. And I remember sitting there at sunset in Pittsburgh, writing about Nick Bosa and his new contract and the salary cap breakdown and all the money that the 49ers freed up through the restructure. Then I remember the 49ers going out and destroying the Steelers the next day. I remember missing week 2 because I was in Tahoe for one of my good friends' weddings. That was Keith and Sarah. Congratulations to them. That was in early September. I remember going there and doing my post-game show for you guys from the forest in Lake Tahoe. Didn't stop working. I remember week 3 against the New York Giants. That was fun. Week 3 against the New York Giants. That was Thursday night. I remember saying that Purdy was playing a good game because I actually knew what I was talking about. I remember people on social media giving me a hard time. And then, then they retracted their words pretty quickly. I don't think they retracted their words. I think they just went and hid, which is what most people have done over the course of the past year when they've been wrong about stuff. And I've been right about stuff. That was funny. But I still remember that's how the New York Giants game went. The 49ers just took some time to get going offensively, and they hit a bunch of screen passes against the Giants. Blitzed like 85% of the time. That was crazy. I remember week 4, I swam Alcatraz the day before the 49ers played the Cardinals, and Purdy then completed like 94% of his passes. Franchise record for Brock Purdy in that game against the Arizona Cardinals. I remember the San Francisco Italian Columbus Day Parade on the morning of the game. They played the Cowboys. They beat the Cowboys 42-10. Remember the trick play to George Kittle? Remember running into Adam Peters in the locker room after the 49ers beat the Cowboys? That was crazy. I remember flying out to Cleveland. 49ers lost that game against Cleveland, but I still remember just eating well in that city. I ate really, really damn well in Cleveland. That was cool. And the injuries started happening there. I still remember Minnesota. Actually, Minneapolis was my least favorite city to visit this year, believe it or not. I didn't enjoy Minneapolis as much as Cleveland, even as much as Jacksonville. The stadium was really nice, though. I remember Steve Wilkes' terrible cover 0 call at the end of the half against Minnesota, and being in that locker room and seeing how upset some of those guys were. Charvarius Ward just stormed out of there. I don't think he was happy getting left on an island with that play call. I remember the very low point of the game against the Cincinnati Bengals. that was one of the 2 times all year that Joe Burrow was fully healthy, and the 49ers were unlucky enough to draw that. So that was kind of the low point of the season. That's not going to be my favorite memory of the year. And the 49ers dropped to 5-3. I remember flying back to Nashville to chill over the bye week. And while after I'd gotten to Nashville, I think I took a red eye at some point after that Cincinnati game. I think the Monday night after I took the red eye, and I slept a little bit in the morning after the red eye. And then I had to go like pick up my car over there or something from my wife's parents' house. And I did. And I told my my wife's mom, hey, I got to run. The 49ers might do something at the trade deadline. And the second I got home, boom, they traded for Chase Young. And we went crazy, right? We had a big show and we just went nuts with the coverage. We hammered it. We covered it from every single angle. So I'll always look back on that and be like, oh, wow. We were talking about Jalen Johnson the night before I boarded the plane on my red eye, and the 49ers were in the mix for Jalen Johnson, but they didn't get the Chicago Bears cornerback. And at the end of the day, yeah, that would have made the defense better because they would have had the 3 corners. But at the end of the day, they had 2 really good outside corners. They had a true top corner in Charvarius Ward, who played through some injuries, played himself into health, and was just awesome this season. Then obviously they had Deommodore Lenoir play some really good football down the stretch. I remember coming out of the bye week, flying to Jacksonville, landing in Jacksonville, and that's the only place you can't get to on the 49ers schedule this year with a direct flight from SFO. So I had a transfer in Houston, and we land in Jacksonville like 20 minutes early. It's all great. And then we just sit there for an hour because our gate wouldn't open up. It was so irritating. So anyway, Jacksonville, I just remember that was probably the best that the 49ers looked as a overall team all year. And their backs were up against the wall. They really needed to win that game. The Jags were on a 6-game win streak, and the 49ers needed to make a statement. And a lot of people were doubting him. And Chase Young came out. He was at the very front of the boombox line, and he played a great game against Jacksonville. And they came out in a 5-man front to begin. And that 5-man front, I thought that was Kyle because he had moved Steve Wilks down to the field. I thought that was Kyle dictating what the defense needed to do. He's like, let's get back to the basics. Let's go 5-man front. Steve, your defense has not been good against the run. We need to recommit against the run. You need to stop the run before you do anything else. Stop the run, have some fun. They recommitted against the run. Steve Wilks, to his credit, put in some good coverage combinations against the 49ers, and the rest was history. Good coverage combinations against the Jaguars for the 49ers, and the rest was history. They beat the Jags. What was it, like 30-3? It was a lot to a little. 34-3 in that game. It was a lot to a little. It was a blowout, and it got them right back on track. It was a hell of a game against Jacksonville. Now we're really testing my memory, because then the 49ers had week 11 and week 12. But when they went back for week 11, I believe that was Tampa Bay, right? Yeah, it was Tampa Bay. I remember being on the field before the game against Tampa Bay. That was back at Levi's. A couple friends were down there. I remember Brock Purdy hitting Brandon Ayuk deep. Unfortunately, that was the game that Talanoa Hufanga tore his ACL. But it was a dominant win again for the 49ers offense. They put up 40. They put up 30 plus, maybe near 40 against Tampa Bay in that game. You saw the explosiveness from Brock Purdy in that game. Then the Seattle sandwich started, right? After Tampa Bay, Thanksgiving was in Seattle. The 49ers ate turkey on the field in Seattle. They have such ownership over the Seahawks right now. That's going to continue into next year, barring injuries. Geno Smith is a mediocre quarterback, and they're getting mediocre results. That's the result you're going to get with a mediocre quarterback. So the 49ers won that game in Seattle on Thanksgiving. Of course, one of the best memories of the season for San Francisco was Philadelphia. I mean, the game started out slow for the 49ers. They weren't able to get enough snaps in on offense, and the Eagles were moving the ball a bit early. But once the 49ers turned it up in the second quarter, they completely annihilated the Eagles in a fashion that was so utterly embarrassing for Philadelphia that it completely avenged the NFC title game, because what it did is it showed that the 49ers probably would have beaten the Eagles, even a better Eagles team the year before, had Brock Purdy stayed healthy. That's how badly they drubbed Philly down the stretch of that game. There was the whole Big Dom, Dre Greenlaw incident too. And the Eagles had a little bit of life before that, or as a cause, like as a result of that, I guess I should say. They showed a little bit of life, but Deebo Samuel just slammed the door shut in their faces in Philadelphia. There was a guy in Philly that was banging on the press box glass, an Eagles fan, trying to talk crap to media members. We're neutral. We're just sitting there working. And this guy was just belligerent. He was just smashing the window, trying to get, it almost seemed like he was trying to get into the press box at a certain point. It was just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, and he was doing that in the first quarter when it looked better for the Eagles. He left the game with time still left on the clock in the third quarter. And after all the smashing of the press box window that he was doing, all the crap talking that he was doing for no reason, I don't get it. These are media members. He never turned around on his way out of the stadium. And his entire group of friends, it was the same thing. So, I'm just telling you memories of the season. So I'm going through them all. 49ers beat the Eagles. Then they beat the Seahawks again at home. That was at Levi's. That was the Philadelphia sandwich, right? It was Seattle, Thanksgiving, Philadelphia, Seattle. So they won the entirety of that 3-game stretch. After they beat the Seattle Seahawks, that was week 14. Then they moved to week 15. This is where my memory is really getting tested. I don't want to have to cheat here. I don't want to have to look at the schedule. This was early December. This would have been like around December 10th or December 11th. Or maybe it would have been a little bit later. No, this was the game before Christmas. This was Arizona, right? Yeah. So then the 49ers went to Arizona. So they went to Arizona. They clinched the NFC West against the Arizona Cardinals. I still remember that very well. Still remember that was the week after the Philadelphia game. The Arizona game, that some of the run defense issues that we talked about all postseason, and obviously talked about up to the firing of Steve Wilks, those issues really reared their ugly head against Arizona. The first time the 49ers played the Cardinals, they faced Josh Dobbs. The second time, Dobbs was long gone, and they faced Kyler Murray, right? And that was, it was another explosive offense game. Brock Purdy played really well again against Arizona, and the 49ers won the division. Then was the Baltimore game, right? After Arizona came Baltimore. That was probably the worst performance of the season for the 49ers offense. Defensively, they held okay. It was a blah performance. It was a rain on their Christmas parade. That game determined the MVP award, which it shouldn't have, but it did. That's just how the voting worked. And the 49ers lost to the Ravens. But they quickly erased that game on New Year's Eve in Washington because they beat Washington, and then they saw the Eagles lose to the Cardinals on their little TVs, the tiny TV they watched in Washington, and that earned San Francisco the number 1 seed. That meant that the game against the Rams the next week was meaningless. They did lose Cleveland Farrell, though, in that game, which did hurt the 49ers for the postseason. Move forward to the postseason. That's easy to remember. First, you had the divisional round against the Packers. That was a heart-rending game for the 49ers. I remember the Aaron Jones 51-yard run. And then I remember, the 49ers were back up against the wall at that point. They forced a field goal attempt. Anders Carlson missed the field goal attempt, and then Brock Purdy went to work. I remember saying that that's exactly what Joe Montana had done for the 49ers back in the past. And I remember being right about it. And I remember a lot of people in the national media being upset about it. And then I remember about 3 days later, the entire national media copying me and starting to say that that was like a Joe Montana moment. I would still like credit for that. They never gave it to me, but it happens. When you're a thought leader, sometimes you have to take some flack for something that's completely true, and then people pretend like they never gave you flack because they're too weak to admit that they need to give you credit. But it's okay. I still remember that after the Packers game. I still remember the build up to the NFC Championship game. I still remember Brock Purdy leading the charge from down 17. Everything that had to go right for the comeback did go right for the 49ers down the stretch of the NFC Championship game. There was the strip from Tashawn Gibson, the recovery from Eric Armstead, the special teams break that they got when the Lions couldn't down the punt inside the 1, the sensational catch from Brandon Ayuk on the deflection from thrown by Brock Purdy, the scrambles from Purdy down the stretch, the happiness that I saw from everybody around the 49ers after they came back to win that NFC Championship game. It certainly was awesome. I'll remember my crazy flight to the Super Bowl where the plane was shaking on the runway. That was insane. I didn't think I was going to make it. I did make it to the Super Bowl. And then obviously, well, we were talking about the Super Bowl all week here. I don't need to rehash that. Anyway, I think I just went through every one of the 49ers 20 games from memory. So I got it. I didn't have to look it up. The only one that almost tripped me up was the quick turnaround to Arizona, but I got that one right as well. All right. I think it's a good way to end. Thanks, Mike. Brock Purdy's immense step forward, as told by Steve Spagnuolo. 49ers should be really, really optimistic about the future. This could keep their window open for a long, long time. Having that elite quarterback is a big, big deal in the National Football League. All right, everybody, thank you. I appreciate everything that you guys have said here. The Real Goat says the same fans who are calling for Kyle's job are the same ones who are crying when the owner fired Harbaugh after 3 straight NFC championship games. Be careful what you ask for. Yeah, I think that's a good point. All right, time for me to eat. We'll talk to you really soon.